So for one night only, the British Fist thought they would review the one night only TNA X-Travaganza pay-per-view, which was the first in these $15 format pay-per-views that they were doing. With the British Fist, as you know, Mr. Parkin here with my AA greatest man that ever lived Austin Aries t-shirt, and this man sitting next to me. Well, you can tell he's just been clubbing, guys. It's none other than NJ.
What's up?
How many ladies' numbers did you get? 5, 6, 7? That's usual.
9, 10, 11, 12.
Generally, you get about 15.
About that. Yeah.
Generally, and I wish you'd give me a couple because I need some girls' numbers. There we go. Thank you very much. We'll exchange textual messages afterwards. Subscribe to us if you will. Comment down below if you saw this show. I would like to know your thoughts on it. Go on.
I'll be surprised to know how many people actually watched this, but after watching it, I don't even think TNA actually gave the expression that this actually meant something to them, which is just how I felt.
What we're going to do in this video is we're going to start off by giving our overall thoughts on this concept, much like NJ's done here, and then we're going to quickly run through the matches. There wasn't really any storylines here. It was mainly about wrestling, so we won't really have too much to say about the matches. I feel I have a bit more to say about the concept itself. Right, so we watched this, and I bought this because I felt this would be a good X Division pay-per-view. You know, I like X Division. I thought, well, if there's no storylines here, why not watch a style that is one of the reasons why I got into TNA itself, due to the X Division, which is one of the reasons I thought, you know what, I'll give this a shot, and if it's good, I'll carry on. If it's not, I won't buy the next one.
Because sadly, when it comes to my opinion, the fact I don't believe the X Division has been hot on fire since I roughly started watching TNA back in late 2011, coming to 2012. Yes, it started to play strong going into 2012, and suddenly it started to go down, down. Yes, they had these odd matches here and there, moments here and there, but nothing really came alive. When it came to this, a whole pay-per-view from like Destination X, but it was another pay-per-view. I thought, okay, let's give it a chance. But as you're going to hear, it didn't do that much justice in all areas.
Yeah, rather this than ROH, though, I'll just say that. If you don't like wrestling without storylines, you probably wouldn't have liked this pay-per-view all that much. I guess my main issue with this pay-per-view was the general atmosphere. You had the Impact Zone crowd, which was a bit naff. You had Taz on commentary that was just awful throughout the night. And the general enthusiasm and lack of enthusiasm by the commentators and everything really didn't help the feel of this show. I really felt if you had a guy like Jeremy Borash or Don West in there or someone like that, you'd have the show would have a bit more of a better feel about it. But the show just really had a feel of lacklusterness about it in the way it was presented via the crowd and the commentary tonight.
In defense, when it normally comes to first ideas, like when they had like the gut check, the open fight night, when it comes to first ideas in wrestling companies, you do expect them to be trial and error. And I think now, with it being the first year, they're going to get out the Impact Zone. They'll probably think all the commentators may not be good, and probably by next year, Taz won't be there. So I think with this just being a try and error, they're going to make mistakes. But tonight was just a pure example of how things shouldn't have gone down. But that takes nothing away from the matches we got.
I will say this. I felt the show being 3 hours, that was a little long, especially in the sense that a lot of these matches really didn't mean that much. The first hour of the show was just a bit in my opinion. So I believe this definitely should have been 2 hours, and that might have helped the show a little bit, much in the way I think would help Raw. Any other final thoughts on this? Because I don't think I will be buying the next one, if I'm honest with you. It wasn't that it was a bad show or anything, it's just that I feel this concept, this interested me because of X Division. I think the next one is a wildcard tag team thing, which I'm not all that interested in. It really all depends on the gimmick they got. The X Division I was interested in, but this pay-per-view format in general, I don't really feel I'm a fan of, even though I've given it a fair shot and actually bought the first one.
As you're going to hear, I'm probably going to compliment quite a lot this pay-per-view, but the 2 hours, I think with the video packages, if they were taken out and just concentrated on the matches, they could have compressed it down to 2 hours, but I think the video packages did show us quality moments.
It was all about celebrating the X Division, which is why they had all these video packages. They had top 10 moments of the X Division. They showed RVD and Jerry Lynn stuff, past X Division matches, the AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels thing. They showed the Unbreakable match from 2005, a little bits of that. So the video packages did a good job in sort of celebrating and showing us about the X Division, I felt. The opening match we had on this card was the Escape match. Matt Bentley and ex-TNA, who was actually in the first Ultimate X match, versus Alex Silver, Sam Shaw, Puma, who is TJ Perkins, Jimmy Ray, Christian York, and a guy called Lynn Dorado. Don't really know too much about him. Yeah, this wasn't a great opener. The crowd was pretty dead for this because there wasn't really too many names in here. The match was kind of awkward. There wasn't really much chemistry here. They probably haven't worked with each other that much, but I really didn't. I felt for 16 minutes this was just not a very good match at all.
What you're going to hear with some of these early matches, I think they could have added a reason to have these matches. Like, if you win this match, you get a chance to go into TNA itself. Instead of just go and wrestle, because it takes nothing away from the wrestling. There was good spots in these matches, especially with this match, but the quality and the reasoning really weren't there to give the enjoyment to it.
Yeah, which was another issue. There was not really much meaning to the matches. Christian York wins here. You know, that's really it. Christian York wins. No, nothing else.
And some people were tweeting Christian York's got this because he's probably the most well-known, the big name out of all of them. So you knew a feeling that he had a big involvement in this match.
He's been the most featured guy out of this match on TNA TV, so no surprise he got the win here. The next match we had was hyped up as Old School versus New School. Doug Williams and Kid Cash versus Anthony Nese and Rashad Cameron. You know, unfortunately, this match had some quite bland promos, which Anthony Nese was kind of a bland promo. Rashad Cameron was a little bit better. But generally, I think this shows you the lack of X Division talent right now. I mean, you look at some of these promos these guys had backstage, it's just like bland and, you know, it's not really interesting.
People are complimenting seeing Kid Cash and they say they miss him and stuff, but I'm not a big Kid Cash fan. The match went down in a way where it did focus on the newer talent or the ones who are trying to make a name for themselves here. But I think that's all it was, highlighting them, not really the most interesting match. Again, without a story.
You see, it was much better than the opener, much less clunky, better chemistry here. I felt the match was pretty solid for a tag match. The commentary, though, was awful, by the way. They didn't really focus on the match at all. They were just bickering throughout. And this was a theme of most of the matches. Doug Williams wins with the Chaos Theory, so a nice finish to this match. No real surprise these two guys went over as they were actually signed with TNA at the time. So we have Robbie E versus Chavo Guerrero next. This is a kind of Robbie E thinking he was the greatest X Division wrestler. Chavo talks about the origination from the Cruiserweight division and how his family played a big part in it from the Lucha Libre. They announced Joseph Parker as a special referee. Shame that in this match, the only person I really cared about was the referee. Not very often you can say that.
That's the thing. The reason Joseph Parks was here was more because of the whole Abyss thing more than Joseph Parks. But with this match, yes, it did stand out him being the one to help Chavo, and there really wasn't much to this match.
Yeah, I'll say this. At least they actually tried to give it some kind of meaning or story with the little promo segment. I just don't care about Robbie E or Chavo Guerrero. I care more about Joseph Parks. So Chavo wins. Not really that bothered about this match. The Ultimate X match was next. I was quite looking forward to this one. Actually, they had that video package with the history of the Ultimate X. They had some interviews and stuff with Kurt Angle, people like Samoa Joe, the Best Moves video package, which I know you were a massive fan of.
I was very complimentary to that because taking nothing away from the other video packages because it showed great matches, great moments. But the moveset of proper X Division, which reason we got into TNA, the reason we got into the X Division because of how they performed. So seeing this and all the performance of X Division worthy wrestlers, it got my interest. It got me missing it. It got me thinking this is what the pay-per-view is all about.
Kenny King versus Zema Iron versus Mason Andrews versus Rubik. So you pretty much got the Destination X 2012 Ultimate X in there without Sonjay Dutt. You know, Ultimate X matches are essentially about winning a number one contendership or winning the title. But here you just didn't win anything. It's a little bit pointless if you think about it. They just get an X and that's it.
And this is what I was saying earlier. I think one of these matches could have been win this, you get a shot to come into TNA. But it weren't nothing about that. But what I will say about this is that I believe they were showing Mason Andrews in a real strong spot here. Because it felt like he was the one who was mainly going for the X while the others were wrestling. But I did like the finish throughout the match.
Yeah, it's a solid Ultimate X match. It's not the best Ultimate X match you're going to see by any means. I think Rubik's was in his first Ultimate X. So solid yet very underwhelming, I guess. The finish was pretty creative though, wasn't it? You have Rubik's winning. You have Rubik's getting the X, but you have to hit the floor before you can win. Kenny King gets him on his shoulders, doesn't let him win the match, and wins himself by slamming him to the ground. So I felt that was a creative finish, especially with Kenny King's heel persona as well in TNA right now.
And again, I think this match, even though I did like the whole X Division aspect, it was more about Kenny King getting another win, a creative win to progress him off when he goes back onto TV.
Which, let's face it, probably should have been about that, really, let's face it. Sonjay Dutt and Petey Williams versus Bad Influence. This is when the pay-per-view started picking up, in my opinion. Sonjay Dutt and Petey Williams versus Bad Influence. I really like Bad Influence. They had that really funny backstage promo before the match. And Petey Williams, must admit, I was looking forward to seeing. So.
And this is the thing, because when you look at this, yes, by this point you do question, with this being pre-taped months ago, you did question some of this, but knowing that fact, it happened. Bad Influence, at first I was like, why are you here? Christopher Daniels is more seen as a main event slowly, while his tag team partner, Kaz, is still floating around below that. But with this match, I'm going to give it compliments. You do always give compliments to Bad Influence. They made this match work. They even made Sonjay Dutt and Petey Williams look good in the aspect of this match. So I cannot complain about this match on the pay-per-view.
No, and all four of these guys at some point have been in the X Division. Bad Influence get the victory here. It was a solid match, and it didn't go too long. A lot of matches went too long tonight, especially with a bad crowd. You don't want the matches to go too long with a bad crowd. It's just going to lose them a little bit more. This went about 13 minutes, about the right amount of time, considering the crowd was not really all that excited for this pay-per-view. Hell, we even saw a Canadian Destroyer at the end, and that's good. So
I think many people do want to see that, especially with Petey Williams eventually going to come back in a more of a full-time aspect. So to see moves that they love and to be done to a big name, it definitely got the crowd
into it a little bit, I guess.
Tried to be, yeah.
So you heard some cheers. There was no "This is awesome" chants though. RVD versus Jerry Lynn. This was one of the final legs of Jerry Lynn's retirement tour. So this was kind of like a farewell match for him. One of the last times we're going to see Jerry Lynn. We saw him at Final Battle for ROH. We're seeing him in TNA now. And I think you joked during the pay-per-view that next stop WWE, right?
He should go there and play some like Tape or just someone there to say farewell to WWE. They've gone through all three big brands.
I don't think he's ever had anything to do with WWE though. So.
Nothing major. But the thing about this match, I'll quickly say, is that I also made the reference of, you can almost, you're not going to agree with me, viewers, I know, you can relate it to the AJ and Daniels, Rob Van Dam being AJ and Daniels being Lynn.
Yeah, and or Lynn being Daniels, you should say. This match does have a lot of history dating back from the ECW days. They had a video package which kind of showed that. These two have very good chemistry in the ring. I know Jerry Lynn's getting on a little bit, but the guy tries really hard in the ring, as we saw when he came back in 2011. I think this was a pretty good match. I know the crowd, once again, weren't too into the match. I don't really think that was the fault of the wrestlers, but there was some good spots here. I wasn't really surprised to see RVD go over, but generally a good match, I would say.
Well, with it being 16 minutes, it definitely shows that these two can put on a good main eventy style match. Just if it was a tables match, we would have had Jerry Lynn win.
And then lose. It would have been 1-1 technically, wouldn't it? But this was a no DQ match as well, and they brought the chair. They had a couple of table spots in there, so not as good as their Bound for Glory match in 2011. But still a decent match for a pay-per-view such as this. And they even had that moment at the end where they had the roster coming out clapping for Jerry Lynn and Jeremy Borash saying his little part. So I felt it was if anything, even if it wasn't like the greatest match they've ever had, it was still a nice way to send Jerry Lynn off into the sunset.
Then we got the video package of him thanking everyone, him with Rob Van Dam saying how he's got to the end of his career now. He just wants to thank everyone, how meaningful this was. So even though I did say that maybe they could have done this on a bigger stage where probably more fans, because not everyone's going to be watching this pay-per-view,
no.
So maybe they could have done it on a one-off TNA show just to give Jerry Lynn a bigger moment. But at the same time, he had a match with his best feud, best rivalry, Rob Van Dam, a good send-off, so it worked out for Jerry Lynn.
Main event of the evening, Samoa Joe versus Austin Aries. These guys had a really good match at Slammiversary 2012, but that was when they had a really hot crowd. Unfortunately, they didn't have that to work with on this show. You had interviews with both guys before the match itself throughout the night, which gave it a main event feel. If you were going to showcase the X Division and the best people around in TNA that have actually gone from the X Division and actually made it as World Heavyweight Championship guys, these are the two guys you generally want to feature, I feel.
And that's exactly what Aries said in his promo. We had Samoa Joe being the very dominant guy, and Aries being the more light-hearted, just complimenting both sides. He said that he's still the best man that ever lived, but Samoa Joe, him and Samoa Joe were the people in the X Division, the headliners and everything. They really bigged up this and made this match seem the worthy main event for this pay-per-view.
Yeah, and it went 18 minutes. It was a solid match. I mean, I wouldn't say it was a great main event. It was a solid main event. Aries gets the win with that quite awesome pin where he just like sort of, I can't really describe it. It was just a fucking awesome pin.
He almost did like a headstand handstand.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, a headstand pin.
That was very creative. Yeah. Submissions throughout the match, which again Samoa Joe is master of. So I think this match worked in both their favours, and for wrestlers or fans that wanted to see this, you get to see this, and it was a match that I think could be probably the best match on the card.
Possibly. Overall thoughts on this show then? TNA Extravaganza, the first one, not only pay-per-view. I'm
going to compliment it because it concentrated on X Division, which I think, like I've said, it's lacked in TNA itself for a while, so I give that credit for. But I do believe that TNA should have probably tweeted it but more, Facebooked it more, instead of just
giving it more hype in general, really.
Done more to it, but overall, contrary on the X Division, thumbs up, but I didn't feel it paid off as the big pay-per-view I was hoping it would when going into it.
I must admit, I did expect a little bit more from this pay-per-view. We did get some good matches. I think the last 3 matches on the card were definitely the best matches. The first hour was kind of filler. I really felt if you made it 2 hours, it would have been a bit of a better pay-per-view in my opinion. But I paid $15 for it, which is around about £10. And this was the one I was most interested in. It didn't really. I think the fact that it didn't really mean that much. It wasn't really much to be done or really much to be seen here. Really, you didn't really need to watch this. This is, TNA have got 4 pay-per-views a year now. I bought it now, and I know now that I'm probably not going to buy any more in the future. And we're probably not going to do any reviews on it in the future unless the gimmick interests us.
Even though I do look at the next one being tag team, which is another thing that in TNA it's not very hot right now. But that's just another story for later on. For this one, I give it a thumbs up. It could have been better.
Yeah, I'll give it like a thumbs in the middle. Like I said earlier, the crowd and the lack of enthusiasm by Taz and TNA really didn't help the show, in my opinion. That's all I'll say about that. Let us know your thoughts if you watched TNA Extravaganza, one and only Extravaganza. Not sure many of you would have watched it, but it'd be interesting to see if you did. Let us know in the comments section below, and thank you very much for watching this review.
And people, all I'm going to say now is tune in for our WrestleMania predictions and WrestleMania review. Hope you have a great weekend. From Mr. Parkin and me, MJ, the sponsor of Monster. Take it easy and goodbye.